Hello everyone, and welcome to Up and Running, Playing with Power's Deck Tech series that helps you get up and running with a new deck as soon as possible. This series will teach you how to pilot the deck, main win cons, strengths and weaknesses, key card choices, mulligans, what to watch out for, and how to stop it if you're against it. Today's Up and Running is brought to you by TCGplayer.com, where you can find all of your cards online while still supporting local game stores. Dragon Shield for all the best accessories to protect your decks, and through Patreon, where you get awesome benefits for your direct support. Today's deck is Yuriko Pivot, piloted by Yuriko the Tiger Shadow. This deck seeks to grind out the game while accumulating card advantage over its opponents. It turns this card advantage into life loss through Yuriko's ability. It then eventually sets up one of its combo finishes. So, let's dive right in. This deck is an adaptive deck. This means it can win quickly with the right cards, but has no trouble playing a longer game and waiting for a good opportunity to execute a combo. The biggest strength for this deck is its sheer card advantage. The deck is built around taking advantage of our commander and grinding card advantage until we assemble a combo. It also gets around a lot of the typical card draw hate seen in CEDH. The biggest weaknesses of this deck are its reliance on combat. While the creatures we do have are evasive, we'll need to find them and start swinging with them. Keeping Yuriko out isn't too difficult. However, the creatures that back her up are small. Board wipes will severely slow down our main card advantage engine. You will like this deck if you like winning with combat or with combos, like resilient and adaptive decks, and want to play a really cool tribe in CEDH. But before we go any further, let's talk about our commander, Yuriko. Yuriko the Tiger Shadow is a 1/3 human ninja that costs 1, a blue, and a black. Yuriko has 2 abilities. First, she has Commander Ninjutsu. For the cost of blue and black, and returning an unblocked attacker you control to your hand, you can put this card onto the battlefield from your hand or the command zone, tapped and attacking. Yuriko also has, whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to that card's mana value. Yuriko provides a Sorin Grim Nemesis effect whenever any of your ninjas deal combat damage. She also perfectly bypasses commander attacks throughout the entire game, anytime a creature of yours goes unblocked. She also puts you very far ahead on cards in relation to your opponents. All around, Yuriko is a very powerful commander that can lead to early victories or grind through long stalemates. So let's get into the deck. This deck aims to play small evasive creatures and deal combat damage to opponents with Yuriko. This deck takes great advantage of cards like Brainstorm, Scroll Rack, and top deck tutors. This also allows you to not only put key game-winning cards on top, but also cards that will take great chunks out of your opponent's life totals. Our primary game plan revolves around the synergy of Yuriko and small evasive creatures. These creatures are used both to initiate Yuriko coming down and dealing damage, and, in case of the ninjas, continue drawing us cards. Cards like Gingerbrute, Ornithopter, and Spectral Sailor help us get the ball rolling with Yuriko triggers. Changeling Outcast, Moth Dust Changeling, and Universal Automaton continually provide triggers to keep us in the game. This deck also has a very interesting combo that it can do utilizing an opponent's Dockside Extortionist and our own Sakashima Student. Sakashima Student is a 0/0 human ninja that costs 2 and 2 blue. Student has a ninjutsu cost of 1 and a blue, and also has, you may have Sakashima Student enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's a ninja in addition to its other creature types. In order to perform this combo, you must be able to have your potential dockside produce 5 or more treasures. To do this loop, start with an unblocked attacker. Announce ninjutsu with Sakashima Student. Have it enter as a copy of Dockside Extortionist, generating at least 5 treasures. Use 2 treasures to ninjutsu Yuriko onto the battlefield, returning the student to your hand. Use 2 more treasures to ninjutsu Sakashima's Student, returning Yuriko to your hand or the command zone. Rinse and repeat. In this example, 1 treasure was generated with each iteration. Note that this all happens during the declare blocker step before combat damage is dealt. After you have infinite mana, have Sakashima's Student copy a creature that can take advantage of the mana. Opponent's commanders such as Thrasios or Kinrith, or even flashing out our own Spectral Sailor that can end the game in our favor. This deck also packs the compact yet powerful Thassa's Oracle combo. We also run the powerhouse Doomsday to help get out this combo quickly. Doomsday is a sorcery that costs triple black and says, search your library and graveyard for 5 cards and exile the rest. Put the chosen cards on top of your library in any order. You lose half your life rounded up. The exact piles you make can vary greatly depending on what you have in your hand, what is remaining in the game, how much combo protection you have, whether you've made your land drop for turn, and so on. What they do have in common is that they typically end with Thassa's Oracle or Jace Wielder of Mysteries. Alongside them is either a counterspell to protect the combo or some way to make the spell unable to be countered. The good news is that Yuriko can usually get us started on cracking our Doomsday piles through her ability. In this example, you'll require 3 black and a blue to start. Cast Doomsday. Stack the pile with the following cards: Gus, Jachaxian Probe, Lotus Petal, Thassa's Oracle, and Agadim's Awakening. After you attack and trigger Yuriko, you'll put Gush into your hand. Return 2 islands and cast Gush, drawing 2 cards. Cast Lotus Petal. Cast Jachaxian Probe by paying 2 life. Draw Thassa's Oracle. Cast Thassa's Oracle and win the game. If the Oracle is countered or destroyed, draw for your next turn and cast Agadim's Awakening, putting it back onto the battlefield. So how do you pilot this deck? You'll want to get Yuriko hitting a player by the second turn in most games. This sets up a powerful draw engine to start to propel us ahead. If we're not able to whittle our opponents down with combat damage and Yuriko triggers, one of our powerful and compact combos should be ready to do the job. Your opening hand should have a creature that is able to be cast on turn 1. Cheap interaction is never a bad thing to have, as we're not necessarily the fastest deck at the table. A relevant hate piece or backup draw engine never hurts either. On the first turn, cast as many cheap creatures as you have to prepare for Yuriko's arrival. Typically, with few exceptions, Yuriko should come down and hit an opponent on the second turn. Recast triggers, find some more ninjas, and get as many Yuriko triggers as the board will allow. Don't worry about Yuriko dying or getting exiled. Her commander ninjutsu ability isn't affected by the commander tax. In the mid game, your hand should be overflowing and your opponent should be sweating. We should be much closer to a combo finish after having drawn so many additional cards. Start tutoring for the other half of combos and attempt to go for a win when possible. We should be continuing to get Yuriko triggers in, and they should be much more plentiful at this stage. Once the late game arrives, our board position should be very well developed. It should be no problem drawing almost an entirely new opening hand each turn. The possibility of our opponents dying to Yuriko triggers is also very real. This goal is made especially easy with the help of cards that manipulate the top of our library. If we don't drain our opponents to death, executing a combo should be easier than ever. Now that you know the main components of the deck, let's quickly go over a few unique inclusions. We run a few of the more expensive spells in the deck to gain maximum advantage over Yuriko. This includes cards like Misdirection, Submerge, Snuff Out, Dig Through Time, and Commandeer. We have a few other bigger spells as well that get maximum damage and help us further our game plan. This includes Temporal Trespass for an extra turn, Seagate Restoration for draw, and Street Wraith to even help with some Doomsday piles. We also include Blink Moth Infusion because of the absolute devastation from flipping it off of the top of the library with Yuriko. So now that you know how this deck works, what should you watch out for? Also, if you are against this deck, what should be used to stop it? Being a commander-centric deck, anything that would steal or otherwise neutralize our commander makes it very difficult to play how we'd like. Gilded Drake and Oko Thief of Crowns are especially problematic as our army has little use outside of enabling Yuriko. While we're not terribly soft to land hate, the restriction Tainted Pact puts on us is nothing to take lightly. Blood Moon, Magus of the Moon, and Back to Basics can slow us down considerably. Being in Dimir, it's not always the easiest to get rid of these kinds of effects once they're on the board. Finally, even though Yuriko triggers are a legitimate threat, our preferred method of victory is with the Thassa's Oracle combo. As such, cards that prevent enters the battlefield abilities will stop those from occurring. Torpor Orb, Hushwing Gryph, and Hushbringer make us need to be careful both in combat and when comboing. We highly recommend you check out the primer on this deck listed in the description below. We also recommend a number of gameplay videos to see it in action. You can also check out the Discord where you can discuss this deck further. All links are in the description. A big thanks to the curators of this deck for piloting, testing, and creating the primer. What do you think about this deck? What deck would you like to see next? Let us know in the comments below. If you want to see more videos like this, please consider supporting us on Patreon, buying from our TCG player links in the description, or just liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.